Okay, recording's on.
Okay, the meeting is being recorded. There are no members of the public in attendance. And Town Council Liaison Julie Smith Galvin is aboard. Opening remarks. I do have a few in that there's a lot of energy business news over the last couple of days. Bloomberg is reporting another warm winter, expecting lower gas prices. The weather is expected to be mild in the eastern United States, northern Europe, and future prices have already plunged more than 20% in November. So that's the worldview on natural gas. Today's big article had to do with ExxonMobil. And as you probably know, ExxonMobil has been fighting exploration and production prices in oil all year long. And they've been depressed. They've been fighting their stock value. And today that they're reporting that they're going to write down North and South American natural gas fields by 17 to 20 billion, writing off that asset as basically stranded assets, I would guess. They're suspending employee bonuses for the year. They're already in the process of laying off thousands of employees, curtailing retirement benefits, and canceling ambitious growth projects. They've dropped at least 10 billion from their capital plan. As some of you have heard, they were dropped from the Dow, and now they're barely in the S&P 500 in a matter of a few years. Yeah, the only thing I could glean from that, they do want to pay the dividend, and this story seems very familiar as when GE went down. They paid dividend to keep the stockholder, but that didn't last more than a year. So trouble on the fossil fuel front. There was a big article in today's Globe about the wind farm selecting GE as their turbine manufacturer for the Vineyard project. The article went on to describe positives in the federal permitting process. I'm sure that the new administration is going to look at wind power far more favorable. And this is an 800 megawatt project, and they may start up as early as 2023. So hopeful news on that front. That's all I had for remarks, but I did get questions to what about calendars?
So we had a lot of issues this year getting pictures from the Historical Society. We started in May and it took us quite a while, but they are in print. They will be completed by Friday. So we're going to put out a press release on drive-by pickups starting next week.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have any remarks?
Just a reminder that on there's the review and training on the Envision Wakefield Resilient Dashboard, which is coming up. I'm just looking for the date to confirm. It's on December 10th from 10 to 11, and I think I sent you all the information. So, you know, it's an opportunity again to learn about how the town is viewing resilience, and actually there's some equity in terminology in there as well. So it's an opportunity to learn at least how the town is going to be viewing those two elements along with other components. So hope to see you there.
Thank you. Yeah, I have that.
I have a couple of.
Go ahead, Tom.
All right. So I spoke briefly with Pete around, there's a grant around from for diesel vehicles for both hybrid and EV only, that came from the Volkswagen defeat device settlement. Beverly actually used the grant to buy a an all-electric school bus. So just something to explore, because I know those we have the bucket and the dump in the budget for next year. So something to kind of explore. And then Pete, just kind of status update. I know also just, was there any resolve to the Sunrun Vivint issue with the Department of Energy?
He's still working on it, but we've identified the two that need to get their paperwork, and so Vinny's following up on it.
Okay. Do we know if this is, you know, the issues with Sunrun Vivint, would the Department of Energy potentially grant an extension for those customers?
There's a potential that there's unofficial discussion of an extension, so hopefully that will become official soon.
All right. And the other,
Actually,
just following
can you
up on the, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, can you describe the issue just for the record?
So we get a report from EMOC each month to see which of our solar projects on our list have been approved by the DOER, and there was an inconsistency this month, actually for a couple months, but you know, there's always a lag of stuff that we approve that has to go through the DOER process. Well, we found two projects that have been lagging for a little while now, and we found out that it's Vivint / Vivint's being bought by Sunrun, and they've been lagging in getting the paperwork in. So these projects are complete from our perspective, but not from the DOER's perspective. So we're trying to resolve those paperwork issues or help them. It's really on them. We approve it from our perspective, but it's up to the customer and the solar vendor to finish the application process through DOER. And I'm not sure if these customers knew that their vendor had not completed the process. So we've been in touch. So, but we found out it's a common vendor. It was Vivint that's now being bought by Sunrun, and they're dropping the ball a little bit.
And then did we get any update, or is it going forward, or do we kind of around the DC fast charger that MWEC was potentially looking to place in town, citing at kind of the head of the lake?
We haven't gotten any new updates on that. We shared some potential locations and the opportunity with them, and I don't know how long it's going to take, Jason. We did share that we would be interested, and we have potential locations around the lake right off the highway. So haven't heard back on whether we would be selected or not.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
The place that Steve identified, which is basically right across from Cumberland Farms, but on the Main Street side, I was a little concerned because it's parallel parking. But if you look at that site, we have some jet outs that have like signs on them or whatever. So I think what we would probably have to do is do a jet out for the charger itself, so you could still drive straight into the space, but it wouldn't be hard to do that in that location because it's wide enough, and there's already another one a little further down.
Gotcha. So more of a like angled in parking, so kind of straight onto the
parallel, but the charger would now be out on a little island out in front of
gotcha.
them. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a viable location from that perspective. They don't really like to do it on parallel parking, but we could based on that spot, because there's already another one of those little jet outs a little further down, so we could definitely do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
So were the options that you're discussing reviewed with the town?
Yes.
Okay. And did they
We
provide
went to them
any?
and said, could you identify some potential locations to put, we have an opportunity to get a high-speed DC charger. Would you have a location? We talked with Fred's Franks that's not a town parking lot, that's a state land. That would have been probably the best spot because it's literally right off the highway and a perfect spot for it, and there's plenty of capacity there. But that's not our land. So we talked about on the other side, like I said, where I just described, on the Main Street side across from Cumberland Farms. If you were coming down Main Street on the lake, there's some spots on that side that we could take up one spot and put a little jet out and put a charger there.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update on where I stand on this question about researching the low income rates. So I spent a long time spinning wheels trying to find a contact, and I finally found a good contact. And I had a phone call on November 18th with the Deputy General Counsel of the Department of Transitional Assistance at the state. And so it was a good call. I explained to her exactly, how the low income rates work with the investor-owned utilities, and that I didn't know if any of the municipal utilities had low income rates or were participating in that same kind of a program with the Department of Transitional Assistance or with Health and Human Services. Because she didn't know that much about it, and so I explained that the way it worked was that it was something that was approved through the DPU, and then after that approval, the utilities entered into some type of a memorandum of understanding with the state, with the Health and Human Services, Executive Office of Health and Human Services. And so what she did was she agreed to go back and look at those agreements and then come back to me with her feedback on what it would take for us she basically said there would be probably two steps before we get to the memorandum of understanding to even implement the thing. If we even go there, we would probably have to enter into some sort of a confidentiality agreement with the state, just to be able to begin to share information about how we could even coordinate in terms of information technology and all the privacy protection concerns and all that. So anyways, long story short is she's going to get back to me, and then I'll be able to come back and make an actual presentation in depth to you guys. Hopefully that'll be January, maybe February, I don't know.
Okay, great.
Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Next, so we move on to the minutes. We have three sets: November 4th regular, November 4th executive session, and November 19th. If we can start with November 4th.
So on the November 4th, a little while ago, I forwarded you comments I got from Jen. So if you have access to your email, you could see a handful of her comments were just typos and stuff, so we could fix those. But the pertinent part, there's a list for inclusion in the 2015A discussion. To give a little background on that, Matt wasn't available tonight, so he's planning to join us in January to discuss some of those items that we were gathering data on. So, so we'll put that as an agenda item in January. But there was a list of things. Some of them are in that list, Jen. Some of like you're asking for stuff that goes all the way out to 2050 for a lot of things, and I mean some of those are really just the best numbers you probably have is this the forecast for forward capacity. But a lot of that other stuff is kind of there is no price for carbon right now, so you can make an assumption and assign a number to it and take a guess at it. But it's really, at this point, it would just be a guess. So you're just going to add a premium onto an existing number and just pick a number. So there's not a lot of information that I could find on that right now. But anyway, so there's in the email is the list of items.
Okay. On the
Yeah, and that's,
go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, that's fine. I mean, I just wanted to make it a little bit more formal so it looked like a request for certain things. And if you can't provide what I'm asking for, just if you could just explain why or why not, and then, what you can provide instead, that's totally fine. I understand.
We'll put it in, have it as an agenda item for January.
Yep.
I'm sorry, let me ask, so does this mean we're probably going to put approval of these minutes on hold for potential future?
No, the edits to the meeting minutes should be fine. It's just what, it was a requested list. What we can do about those requests or what we'll talk about in January.
Okay,
The first correction I have on the November 4th was a member of the public, Christine Rio. There is a U missing in her last name.
Yeah,
Should
we
be
got that.
Rieux.
That was one of the typos.
I have to go to another meeting, so I'm gonna sign off. I
Okay.
didn't have a lot of update anyway. I think you passed over my comments, but other than that, we did talk about Broadway and Town Council. Probably everybody's seen that coverage. So thanks for your help on that. And the Albion Street design's been approved as well. So I think those are the only things that pertain. So thank you very much. Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
thanks,
Thanks,
Julie.
Julia. Bye.
Bye-bye.
On the third page, or what's numbered in my book is page 5, under old business, audit presentation by Melanson Health. The acronym OPED is used twice without spelling it out to other post-employment benefits.
Okay.
If we could add that into the first OPED.
Yep.
That was all I had. If no one else, we can move to the executive session minutes.
I had 2 questions, but I can't read the page number. Looks like maybe it's an 8. Yeah, there's a 6 and a 7, so the next one's 8 that got cut off. So on page 8, that I guess I'll call it the 2.5 paragraph, it says Commissioner Betcher inquired, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The next sentence, it says, I guess I didn't quite understand if there's a typo or not. It said Commissioner Corsi reminded this board that the solar project before this board for approval has a power agreement of $2 million. I just want to make sure there wasn't a typo.
Yeah, there might be something missing from that. We can
Power
probably word
agreement.
that better.
Yeah, maybe power agreement commitment or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And the sentence right after that, it says Commissioner Corsi said that he understands capacities to change. And I think that needs to be made more specific. What about the capacity changes? You know what I mean? Capacity forecast, capacity, incurred. I don't know. I don't remember the exact statement at the time.
It's actually probably prices, capacity prices change.
Oh, right. Well, they certainly do. Yes. So how do we,
So I would say
Decide what-
approval of the board has a power agreement commitment of $2 million. Commissioner Corsi said that he understands capacity prices do change over time, and we are seeking offshore wind power. So I'll make those 2 edits.
okay, those will be fine with me.
That's fine.
If I didn't hear any other after the chairman asked other comments, so if there aren't any, I would make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 4th meeting with the edits we've discussed.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Unanimous 4-0. We can move to the November 4th, 2020 executive session minutes.
Okay, I need to stop this recording and then start another one. Is that correct? Right?
No, you know what, Phil, why don't we put the executive session ones at the end of the meeting? We'll just approve those in executive session rather than start. Let's keep this tape continuous.
Okay.
It's gonna be a pain to upload it and download it. So why don't we hold off on the executive session minutes till the end of the meeting, and then we can just go into executive session just for the purpose of approving those.
That's fine with me if the chairman agrees.
I agree. Okay, we'll move on to the November 19th, 2020 minutes.
I had two things on page 16 that I wanted to raise.
Go ahead.
So this is the second page of the minutes. So first paragraph, the last two sentences. It says, she also mentioned she met someone in town, and I'd like to strike that would like to and replace it with who could, because I have not actually spoken with this person about volunteering. I did not raise that idea to the individual. And then I would like to just strike the last sentence, because I actually don't know that it, I wasn't necessarily saying it would be paid at all. I was just wondering whether, you know, we would have a volunteer position as an alternative.
There's nothing material there. I would agree with striking that. She also mentioned she met someone in town who could volunteer, but that's kind of, was this town? So why are you saying that she could volunteer if you haven't even discussed it? So then maybe both sentences should be stricken.
Well, I mean, I did say that in the meeting. I said I'd met someone in town, and I said the person had some interesting qualifications, you know, as essentially a building inspector. Okay. And so, you know, that's why I'm just summarizing that as who could, but we could add that detail.
Who could possibly assist townspeople with heating and weatherization questions?
Well, let me make a different suggestion. She also mentioned that she met someone in town. We could approach to assist with whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, did you did you not also kind of compare like this position or, you know, person kind of compare it to like the solar coach?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
it would be something similar on the heating and weatherization side.
I'm fine with whatever you're comfortable with, Jen. It was your statement.
Yeah, I just wanted to remove the inference that I had actually spoken to this person about that idea, because I have not. So I'm fine with the way, I forget who just said the last sentence. I'm fine with that. I think it was you, Jack.
So she also mentioned she met someone in town we could approach to potentially assist townspeople.
Yeah, those were my words. I put them in Jen's mouth, sorry. She also mentioned she said who could volunteer is what she said.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so let's stick with that if everyone's okay with it.
I'm fine with it. I mean, it's a little bit of the poor person maybe has no desire to volunteer.
Well, they might not. Yeah. I mean, that's why I don't want to say that they will.
Right. Say who could. It just implies that the person suggested it.
So alternative suggestion, because I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I mean, we could say we could approach to
possibly assist,
ask for help on, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So she also mentioned she met someone in town who might be a resource we could tap into, or something like that.
How about, she also mentioned she met someone in town who could coach customers on heating and weatherization questions.
Okay.
What, does that help?
Yep.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, and then the second one is the first sentence of the next paragraph. Commissioner Betcher inquired if the rebate and incentive packet, I just wanted to add energy efficiency rebate and incentive packet, because I think that's what you were referring to.
Yes.
And that's it for me.
I only had something on the vision statement, which is page 19.
Go ahead.
All right, so I would just have it read, there's just like 4 changes here. Commissioner Washall inquired as to, so insert the word TO, to, what, and then insert quotation marks, and then promoting the future of the, insert the word the, energy resources entrusted to us, insert close quotation marks.
Okay.
And I have nothing else.
I have on page 20, 2/3 the way down. I need to change some of that wording so it's not implying I'm speaking for National Grid. Commissioner Corsi said that in his experience at National Grid, and instead of they were, I'd like to change that to that he was never allowed to cut tracks. And by cut or remove. And then in the next sentence, instead of they, should read, his projects always had to jack and bore.
Mhm.
And then in the last sentence, there's a comma. So the town doing, instead of it, so the town doing the permitting is out of his domain.
Yep.
And that's all I had.
I'll make the motion to accept the November 19th minutes as appended and edited.
I'll second it.
Second.
Ooh, 4 seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Unanimous, 4-0.
As a pitch for myself, I will say I haven't gotten the second in a while.
I'll shut up.
I've been checking.
Oh, we're keeping score?
Yes, there's a score going on here.
Well, we always have multiple seconds and sometimes multiple firsts, so I never know who gets credit for what, and I never keep track.
Well, I'm just raising that I never get credit.
Oh.
We'll put you in.
Well, I think I remember you seconded that one first, right?
So I'm trying to change that in 2021.
Okay, old business. Peter?
Project updates. I don't know if there's any questions. There's not a lot of change on that's. We're making great progress on the 4KV project. The switchgear is alive. We have the first circuit cut over last week. The second one will be completed this Saturday, and the final 4KV circuit will cut over next week. So we'll be able to retire those transformers by the end of the year. Thank goodness. So that's good on the project front. We're also Foundry Street's moving pretty quickly now, and so there's a lot of work going on over there. We are gonna bring in a contractor next week since Broadway's not moving very fast. We had planned to do work after grid got out of the way there, but we're gonna bring in a contractor next week and work up towards Foundry. We had moved over to the side of the road, but since that's the dead part of the road right now, we're just gonna bang that out in the next couple of weeks. There's some more work we needed to do out there, so since it's stagnant, we're gonna there's a class 2 leak there, and there's some conversion work that we need to do, so we're gonna take care of that now. What else?
So people may find that a little confusing only because National Grid just gave everyone multiple communications about the site being dormant for a while.
Yeah, I think that was what told us that we're gonna, give us a chance to jump in and get some work done, further down the street. So
yeah, so I don't know how to announce that, but it might help if you did.
Yeah,
just so people aren't confused.
We'll put something out. What else is there? One of the things is on the dashboards. I think it's just look at the aging. I know, so we're in an extended moratorium here that's gonna, at the end of it, it's gonna have lasted a year. I think Mark and Sylvia and the team are doing the best they can in, very proactive communications with people, but the numbers are the numbers. They, and it usually only gets worse in the winter anyway. So we're expecting it to continue to, degrade a little bit over the next 3 months before we get to hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel on the other side is the people that are completely ignoring us can be shut off. So we were working very hard to get people to set up payment plans and, be reasonable, and we're trying to be reasonable with them. But if the message I'm trying to give is that if anybody talks to you, tell them to talk to us and try to work something out. The guaranteed way to get shut off on the first day is if you haven't reached out to us or talked to us. If you've been blowing us off for 6 months to a year, you're going to be on the top of the list to be shut off. So reach out, communicate, work with us, and we can work with you. So that's the key message.
And what is the shut-off date currently?
It's April 15th is when the moratorium typically ends.
And how many customers right now do you have an estimate on the residential and C&I side? Does this include? Who are eligible for shut-off? Who may be eligible for shut-off?
Well, anybody over in the yellow or the red on that chart.
So this is in terms, Jen, the chart is in terms of percentage of dollars. It's not in terms of percentage of customers. So I don't have a number of meters per se. So right now this is looking at dollars. So I can have some type of guesstimate, get you in the ballpark of, whether it's 10% of our customers, 20%, 50%, what are we talking about for our customer base? I can get you that for January.
And then can you also break down, that percentage of C&I versus residential?
Yep.
Obviously dollars could be a few, C&I that are.
Yeah, it is definitely. There's a couple of big C&Is that are.
So there's a couple of people that are on my red. There's a couple of conversations that I have once or more a week with certain customers that do make up a significant portion of this. So,
Well, hopefully we'll have a relief bill by April 15th.
Those
That would be-
conversations.
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
those, are they contentious, or are they trying to work something out with you?
No, it's more matter of fact. It's, the information is, they have the same information that I have, and I say, I can't, the conversation usually goes down the road of, I really can't go any further down, down with you on this. I mean, it's a significant amount of money. What do you see? How can I help you? How can I get you there? How can we come to a mutual agreement? So, and I think, to your point, Jack, I think it's a lot of it is in the approach. I mean, it's one thing if, you approach a customer and, with fire, it's, you're going to get limited results. That's been my experience over the years anyway. So, you just try and work it the best you can.
You only call Mark grumpy in the building, not outside the building.
I wonder if there isn't, and I mean, the percentage is getting bigger and bigger, right? It's scary.
Indeed.
I wonder if there's not a point soon at which we should maybe meet in executive session to kind of talk about, well, and it's a slippery slope, I guess, but like, we don't want these guys to go out of business. So like, what can we do? But we can't talk about it because it's, we don't know who they are, and you can't share that information with us
Sure.
necessarily, certainly
Sure.
outside of executive session. And I just wonder if this is something that we need to address, because these numbers are getting scary.
Yeah. So, and that's, to your point, Jack, I mean, that's what we do is, I'm not looking to pull anybody's meter to put them out of business. That's not, you know what I mean? That's not what this is all about. It's getting them current, getting them better than they were. You know what I mean? So if you're working with me and you're at least keeping your head above water, or even with the horizon, and this has been this really, this isn't any different than our approach has been COVID versus non-COVID. I mean, we talk to people, we reach out to people, and I mean, that's what we're here for. So, and like Pete said, the certain way, to get a service termination is to not talk to us and ignore us after we've tried to reach out, several times, because I'm going to tell, again, this is public session. I mean, there is nobody that all of a sudden should be surprised that their meter has been pulled. It doesn't happen that way. We've tried to reach out several times before we get to that spot.
And, we're trying to set up, for some of these bigger customers, set up, Mark was able to get $6,000 out of somebody that had a pretty big, like well over $50,000 debt. And so that's the big one that Tom's talking about that's kind of swaying those. There's a couple of those that are bigger like that are swaying a lot of the dollars. And so we got some money. My opinion is, getting some money out of them is better than getting no money out of them. So for example, There's a large hotel that has trouble because they're only at 15% occupancy. Well, then pay 15% of your electric bill, and then we'll keep working with you.
So we try to
Right.
approach it with a reasonable person standard. I mean, that's pretty much what we try to do. So.
Yeah, and that's good, but I'm just kind of trying to think outside of the box and think maybe there's something else that we can do. Like maybe we can arrange, I'm thinking, like I said, outside of the box. What if we could arrange some type of almost set it up as a loan? And I don't know if that benefits us in any way, but so that we're not at risk, they are.
So with a loan that need to be some type of security. So I mean, what we have here is an unsecured debt, right, Jack? I mean, it's kind of like a credit card. You know what I mean? There's no. So the securitization of the loan would require let's say a mom and pop liquor store, not that I have a liquor store or anything like that. Let's just say a mom and pop business or a machine shop or something comes to me and says, you know, I mean, they'd have to put a hard asset up, you know, whether it be the person's house or something. And I know I'd be, if I was on the other end of that as the business owner, I'd be a little bit, probably, I'd think twice about that. That's just my,
Yeah. Okay, all right, that's fine. Yep, that's fine.
okay.
Thanks.
But anyway, we're watching it a day. I watch it day in and day out. And again, there's limited things that we can do as far as communications right now, especially on the residential side. So, you know, I think that, you know, there's the notion that we just wanted to remind the board, that we're looking at it, we're watching it, and we're not, you know, in speaking with my peers, or our peers, we're not alone in this. It's, you know, there's, you know, it's not just an issue that's specific to Wakefield. It's, you know, it's statewide.
That's what I'm wondering, if what do our state reps say? If every utility, water, sewer, electric, you know, is having this problem, the state has had COVID relief funds. Some point, you know, we need to put that ore in the water. And
So water and wastewater, Phil, just as a reminder, water and wastewater is specific to the residents, and that can be leaned. That is leaned on the real estate tax bill. So the risk on water and wastewater is a lot less than electric. Now, that being said, we do lean electric in this one time a year in the spring. So, you know, but there's, you know, businesses usually have, you know, don't have the property that we can lien. I mean, normally it's rented, at least rented. So it has to be on the property owner. The business would have to be owned by the property owner, have common ownership before we could lien it. So.
Any other questions on that?
Well, I think we talked about previously how MWEC might have a role to play at some point. Is there any thought that we're reaching that, you know, that our group of 20 utilities are reaching or would reach that point between now and April?
It would be individually by utility, and we're not there yet. But what we would do is basically we could finance a month of power bills and, you know, take it on as a, you know, if we were having a cash flow issue, we would withhold paying our power bill and put it on a line of credit basically, and then pay it off over time. So that, in, you know, in a winter month, that's $1.5 million to $2 million. So that's basically taking out a loan.
I assume that comes with an, you know, cost of funds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the money's cheap right now, but who knows what's to come. But.
So yeah, so we're not there yet, but so all 20 munis have that opportunity with MWEC, and as they get into different situations, they'll, you know, for example, Princeton has always had a tough time because of their situation with their wind turbines. They're always sitting at the top of the cost scale, and their debt, you know, they're carrying a lot of debt. So they've been into that situation a couple of times where they've had to kind of borrow against their account at MWEC. So.
So to just circle all the way back, I do think that the number of customers would be helpful to me, at least, just to see what pool we're, you know, to your point, if it's big numbers for few customers or how that kind of shakes out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll move on to community solar. So I shared a download of a report. It's a little bit dated, but not too much. And I've also done a lot of legwork on different communities and how they're doing their solar programs. I also had some discussions with MWEC about it. What was suggested is that in January, we're gonna put out a request for proposal. And we're gonna offer a few different structure options in that proposal. One would be a straight EPC, engineer, procure, construct contract for a number. And then we would pay that number and we would own it 100%. And then we could then talk about how we want community members to buy into the project. A second way is a straight purchase power agreement where a third party owns the project and we have a purchase power agreement with them. And then the third option is a hybrid of those two, where you sign, by having a partner, they get to take the equity, the tax benefits from it, because we don't get any benefit from the tax side of it. So if we have a partner and we construct a hybrid, for example, and I'm not saying this is the way it worked, but for 5 years, they own the project and we have a PPA, but then we have an agreement in advance that we would buy out the project at some lower capital number at the end of a period of time, 5, 7 years, whatever it is. After they've exhausted the tax benefit and we've agreed on a cents per kilowatt hour for the first half of the project, then we own it on the backside for some fixed capital dollars that would be lower than the original amount, obviously, because it's now 5 years older and it's been bought down. So those are kind of the different structures that are available. So we're going to go out for an RFP at the beginning of the year and get proposals on that to do a total of 2.5, a quarter of a megawatt on the combined roofs of North Ave and Wakefield Ave. We can fit approximately 225 on our roof, plus or minus, and approximately 25 on the Wakefield Ave roof. So that would get us to the quarter of a megawatt. So we're going to work with them, helping us put together that RFP, and we'll go out at the beginning of the year and try to structure some kind of deal. Now that's the how to buy it side. Then the how to sell it side, we have to look at how are we going to structure it for customers to buy in. And there's a few different ways that customers buy in. There's a premium on a cents per kilowatt hour basis, or there's a fixed cost each month. Some of the communities have done some surveys on that, and there's a slight, so Great Blue, who did our survey for us a couple of years ago, they've surveyed these questions. They did it most recently for North Attleboro, and they asked the question, would you prefer a fixed cents per kilowatt hour or a fixed monthly charge basis? And it was a slight benefit towards the fixed cents per kilowatt hour basis. It was like 52% to 48, it was a slight margin of victory for that type of an approach. So there's some options on that side of it as to how you solicit community customers and how you charge them for the project.
Should we,
Well,
on the survey part, I'm just wondering, we just survey our customers. Is there an easy way for us to get, meaningful feedback that's, statistically relevant versus, it's not necessarily meaningful if only 20 people respond or
I think, I don't know if I'd want to spend the money focusing on that, because I don't think it's, based on what I saw on the data, it's going to be, 6 of one, half it as the other. I don't think it's going to send any meaningful, it's going to depend on the numbers too, so, but for example, Braintree charges a 1 cent premium on their power charge, but it's locked in for 15 years, I think. So it's a set rate on a kilowatt hour charge. Whereas Reading charges a fixed charge of $4 or $5 a month on the bill. So they don't do it on a cents per kilowatt hour basis.
Reading through the package, and I did, it's extensive. Couple of things in the financials that most of the revenue was coming from the sale of SRECs. That was the highest. So that was an interesting feature. And then the number of examples of existing projects that were underwater, that was impressive. So it says that if you have any ideas of not selling SRECs, then you'll be underwater before you even start. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to look at this project as again, that's why I'm targeting a 1/4 megawatt, kind of a small piece as a test. You know, the other thing that the benefit of using our roofs is that you're keeping the cost down, because another component of the cost of these projects is land procurement and pilot payments. So we're eliminating that from the cost equation because we already own the roofs, so we don't have to rent roof space from somebody else, and we don't have to pay a separate pilot, you know, because we already pay an exorbitant pilot as it is. So, and it's just, you know, putting panels on our roof. So,
yeah, I had no way of evaluating that.
yeah, so that's a piece of getting the cost, keeping the cost down. And again, targeting that 1/4 a megawatt is trying, you know, kind of see what kind of interest we get in how to, you know, as we structure a deal.
And from our perspective, we would retire the RECs versus selling them so that they count towards our portfolio.
Again, that's going to be a decision of the board. The one of the greatest sources of revenue is the sale of the RECs, but I understand that we'd be doing this as a green project. Another option is to sell the RECs and buy main class 1 RECs to offset that and still use the financial benefit of the delta.
Will there be, you know, just so we as the board can understand, you know, the pros, cons, options, will we be kind of given the menu of the decision, you know, keeping the RECs or retiring the RECs, you know, straight up selling the RECs, you know, selling the RECs and then purchasing main 1, kind of some of those modeling.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do that in analysis. So the first step is to create an RFP for a project and kind of get a, what's it going to cost? You know, we have a rough idea, you know, based on, you know, a back of the envelope estimate of cost for an EPC project. So that's why we carried a number in our budget. It was the number we talked about last month in the budget was a little low because we added in the whole idea of doing the Wakefield Ave roof at the same time. So the number is probably more in the neighborhood of 850 to 900, as if we were just going to pay for it and buy it ourselves and then try to sell it off. So that's the straight number out of the gate. However, in reading through the, you know, community shared solar and talking to a lot of people, there's a lot of ways to get that number down. You know, obviously getting an equity partner that's going to get the tax benefit is the first big step. You know, if we get somebody in and, you know, we structure some kind of deal where they're going to get tax benefit out of it, we can get that 900,000 down right out of the gate, you know. And so, and then there's obviously the options to kind of create hybrid deals and things like that. So.
Would there be, I mean, do you have any prospects for, you know, I know we would solicit it for equity partners. Would there be anyone that's, you know, in town local that could be an equity partner that we know of or can identify?
It's probably going to be a solar vendor, like the people that are, people that did Ashburnham and are also the leading candidate on the MWEC project that we talked about last month. EDF, I think they are. They're a big player that does stuff like this.
Okay.
So, I don't know if there's anybody in town that would, you know, be in that business. But again, we're going to put it out as an RFP, so we're going to accept proposals.
Get responses, yeah.
So I wasn't clear how applicable this report was to us as a muni. So I wanted to get a sense for that. You mentioned a PPA, which I don't think was mentioned in here. So do we have, are there additional opportunities that we have or advantages that, or even disadvantages that we have that are not in this report that we should be aware of?
Well, again, we own some land and some roof assets, so that's a
Yeah.
place that, and again, we're not gonna have to pay a separate pilot so there's two big cost equations. The other thing is we have the flexibility to create a project over we want with a lot less bureaucracy. I think one of the things I got out of a lot of the terminology, but again, the whole concept of having some kind of commercial partner that's going to be able to reap the tax benefits of a project like this, that's a concept that really came home as I started to read through some of these different ideas.
Yeah, one of the things I took away, to Jen's point, that I took away is, all of these were investor-owned utilities, and I think that potentially we have an advantage because we're the utility and we can produce power as a muni.
Yeah, one other point that's important is that you have to, some of the costs in these other projects is interconnection. There's usually a huge study that has to be done for National Grid or Eversource. Then they charge you a lot of money to interconnect your big solar farm into the system. That's a huge advantage we have, is that those interconnections, when we go out to bid for this, it's going to assume that they need to bring the output of their inverter to a transformer that we provide. And so their interconnection costs are not going to have to be factored into this because we're going to do that work. So that's another.
On the benefit side, will we have access to the SMART program if we go through a private partner?
I don't think so because we're a muni.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wasn't sure. So we
Because
won't have access to any of those incentives.
Yeah, because Jen, I think it's due to their servicing up, it's the territory that the power is going into.
And the other question I had is MWEC's role. So you mentioned that there are other munis that MWEC serves who have done these projects. I guess my first question is how many of them? I heard you say, I think potentially 2 or 3, maybe there's more. And is there any opportunity to aggregate with them on this, either maybe not for this project, but moving forward? And would MWEC have a larger program that could kind of do this more, efficiently, or obtain better costs through that?
Well, that's Project 2020A. Like we voted on, that's their solar project. So, and again, each town kind of creates there's potential that where if EDF were like a potential vendor, maybe there's some economies of scale if we're doing projects at similar times, if they were to win the bid. And we're kind of, everybody with the munis, everybody's kind of at a different place and a different time, so they just try to help facilitate, what each local community wants to do. The one benefit, we're a little ways into the solar world now, so the costs have come down and the efficiencies of panels have gone up. So the economics are slightly better, but it's still, as Phil said, it's still a little bit underwater, and I think we'll have to be careful not to market this as you get an immediate savings on your electric bill type of thing. But you both have solar on your roofs and you didn't get an immediate savings. You got a savings in your electric bill, but at the cost of a huge capital outlay. So, people have to understand you're not going to be making the huge capital outlay. So your electric bill is not going to go down,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's the over time, the environmental benefits and the
Right. So I think one of the things that I'd like to figure out if we could structure is that my whole idea was get the capital cost down as much as we could with some kind of structured deal, ultimately end up owning it at the end of a period of time, 5 or 7 years, where we own it. And then we're collecting some money back over a period of time from the customers to some point, where some portion of the capital is paid off. And then you could start to say 10 years down the road, or 12 or 15 years down the road, that the project's paid for. So now any of the output, your share of the output does come off your electric bill. So instead of you paying an extra cent a kilowatt hour, now you're getting your percentage share of the output, you know, so.
Yeah, I think that's how most, are modeled out.
So that's just the thinking we had. So I just kind of wanted to go over that with people and share some of the concepts as we go into this to start next year. If everybody's comfortable with that. We're under no obligation yet because we're just going to go out for a request for proposal. We have a conceptual design of space on our existing roof and on Wakefield Ave's roof that would definitely accommodate about 1/4 of a megawatt. So we'll kind of go out for that, and we'll ask for different structures of a proposal. And one of the things Matt was sharing with me is that, like, so if we said, I want an EPC cost and I want a cents per kilowatt hour cost, and then I want a hybrid that says cents per kilowatt hour for 5 years and then a buyout of the capital. There's once you have those, you potentially can then work on negotiating somewhere in between all of that. So, you know, so we're probably going to try to structure it with 3 separate options, you know, a capital outlay, a cents per kilowatt hour, and then some kind of blend of the two, so that, you know, we'll pick some terms that make sense from a tax perspective for the partner and from the business perspective for us. And then between the two of those things, there's probably going to be room to negotiate and adjust. So. But we'll see how it comes. Again, the way I was thinking of selling it to the customers, in my opinion, would be to have sell it on a KW basis. You could buy 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10 KW. Have some kind of fixed cost that's, you know, like $100 or $150 per KW to buy in. So you're a little bit committed to this, and you just can't walk away. You at least you put some skin in the game. I mean, you guys put, you know, several thousand in the game. So a small amount to buy in up front, and then whether we structure it as a monthly charge or a KWH charge, it has a fixed term. And at the end of that term, the assumption would be you still own it for after that, but your kind of capital's now paid off, and then you're going to get your prorated share of the benefit each month after that.
And then reading around that, so some of the challenges that were brought up around that, just some of the things to think about, you know, when someone that purchases and then moves, and then kind of the accounting and mechanics that go around that. I'm going to make an assumption that our billing system can handle this. That was another thing that was kind of called out. Is that something that's easily done, or is that something that also needs to be accounted for?
So we have to look at that. But one of the things that, you know, we were kind of kicking around is if there's going to be a credit posted to somebody's bill, it's probably going to have to be, right now looking at it, it's probably going to have to be a manual process. We'll just do it once a year, once a quarter, something like that, rather than every month do the manual process, because that can get labor intensive. So, yeah. You know, I think that's the best way to handle it right now. So. But
if we're gonna charge them on a cents per kilowatt hour basis, we're gonna have to figure. Right. Yeah, it's gonna have to be applied to the bill as a separate charge. So it is going to be a little bit of work, but again, on the size of a 250 kW project, again, it's another reason we're trying to keep it at a fixed quantity so that we can try to manage through some of the learning curve.
Awesome. Well, thank you for putting this together. You know, I think the exercise is really good. You know, hopefully it comes to fruition, but this research is definitely helpful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I also appreciate this, and I'll be excited to see what comes back from the RFP.
And I just want to say that I'm just kind of thinking that like this concept of community shared solar makes, I think, more sense for the big utility company. Because in the town of Wakefield, all of our customers are we're all the same community. So it just makes me question whether or not we should have one of these so-called community shared solar programs, or, meaning for targeted customers who are willing to join, versus having solar panels put on the roof for the benefit of the entire community. I just want to throw that out there because I'm not sure. It just seems very complicated to create this whole program. And I can't see the purpose. The purpose is just to get clean energy. Let's just put it on the roof and put it in our supply mix, rather than creating this program.
So that would be kind of, if I understand that, Jack, just kind of option one, but no, buy-in from the customer. We just put out the EPC and then consume generate the power as the utility, like, just on a much larger scale, like we're doing with the pole tops.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me, when we see the RFP, I think we'll be able to compare essentially what the two options would look like, correct? Because we'll have the pricing information.
Well, I think that the real question that Jack's raising is on the other side of it, whether we do a cents per kilowatt hour or we could, all that front end stuff is independent of whether you would sell that to everybody else or just do it for the benefit of the whole community and not have individual shareholders,
Right.
I mean, it's a very good question. I think that, my understanding of community shared solar, and maybe we should talk about it a bit more, is that it can get you to higher levels than you would otherwise get by doing the kind of, projects that you were discussing, because you have an additional funding source from customers that's like incremental, right? So you would want to do, all the solar you can do up to the threshold that you're willing to tolerate. And, for conversational purposes, maybe that's like within, as long as we don't increase rates at all, right? So I don't know what that, how much more solar we can fit in under that construct. And then if you wanted to go above and beyond that, you would enter into kind of community shared solar where customers would, assist essentially with getting to more renewable energy faster than you would otherwise get. So if we're not at that threshold yet, if we're nowhere close to that threshold where we're going to have a rate impact from doing this, since it's pretty small scale still, then maybe we don't need to do it right away. But I just want to confer with others to see if that's their understanding of, how this mechanism can help us and how we would leverage this mechanism.
Well,
Yeah,
I like the whole idea, but
go ahead,
we
Jeff.
need to think it through.
Yeah, I think that's the same page as Jack. Understanding the financials. To Jen's point, does this fit in the budget and we don't have a rate impact, or does it impact the rate? And kind of make those decisions based on the financials that come out of that. I think probably we need the RFP to come in to understand that, and then we can kind of discuss as a board which way we want to go.
And Peter, do we pay MWIC for preparing the RFP? How does that work?
No, I'll work with them. They have some formats that, that's part of the service. It's consulting service that they provide.
Thank you.
Dave's sitting there saying, "Oh no, I can see this coming my way right now."
Yeah, it'll be on my desk tomorrow.
No, I'll wait till next week.
So my larger concern was, it's interesting, Jack, that you made that comparison, because I think it's a really good conversation to have. My larger concern in looking at community solar was that, to me, the idea of continuing to replicate the incentive program that we've had for the last year, where you're effectively loading incentives onto a small number of people with a fair amount of wealth, who get a lot of benefit from that, feels inequitable over the long term. And so being able to spread the ability of people to participate among more people, and giving opportunity to others who might not have had an opportunity in the past, felt like a more fair and equitable way to continue.
Is coming back into play.
Sorry?
Equity, that's the equity where we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. And I see that point, and that's a good point too, that if there are benefits that people are getting from having solar on their homes, that certain people like me in a condo, I have no opportunity to benefit from that, then this isn't something additional that shouldn't necessarily be shared with the whole town, because the rest of the town already has the opportunity to do it themselves. So it's almost like this is something that's for the people who, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's for the people who can't do it themselves. So I get that. So yeah, we need to think about this. I need to think about this.
Yeah, there's really, I mean, Jack, I kind of see it two ways. Is one, the first way, which is kind of the way that you described as, we as a utility make this investment, and, the benefits just kind of globally benefit everyone that is a ratepayer here in town. And then the second one is the ability for, folks to, let's just say it's on a per kilowatt, to buy in into solar, for whatever reason, their home is not oriented correctly, the shading's wrong, they don't have the capital funds, their renters, condo owner, all of those things, have the ability to then say, you know what, I want to participate in solar and make that active, and that ties on to Jen's point that we can, build even bigger, because you have this revenue source coming in from people participating into this program as well.
True, but we can only build as far as we have capacity to build. That's the other thing too. That's a constraint. You know what I mean? So because we only have certain areas we can put these on. So yeah, we have a bunch of things to balance. So if we maxed up on the solar, then we should just offer to the whole community. But yeah, I'm second guessing myself here and thinking about so let me just give my specific example. So here I am in a condo. I could probably put solar panels on my roof, but I can't do it through any existing programs at the light department. So, community shared solar is my only option. And I keep going back to the utilities used to have these, what they call green rates. You could sign up for green rate, meaning that you volunteered to pay extra so that we could promote the development of green energy, green, resources. And it kind of seems like that's what this would be. So community shared solar. So some people would pay in to get the benefit. I don't know. Yeah, I guess
you could offer it to, not offer it, but apply it to everyone across the town. So they pay for the capital investment, and then once it's paid off, then they get a credit. No.
Why would you want to add a cost?
It's the same
Yeah, that would just be
impact.
part of the rate, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Wouldn't
it's
that
already
just-
buried in the rate, yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't that just be blended in our rate?
I think the only reason I was thinking about this project, and I know a few people have talked about like offering projects for like other commercial roofs that might be good candidates in town. And the reason I was thinking of doing this project first was to test the interest level as well. You know, and Jen was kind of talking about there might be money to make more projects, but if we only have 20 people, you know, so it's another interest, you know, does the 1/4 megawatt get subscribed? You
Yeah.
know, is there a latent demand or is there no demand or a minimal demand? So that's, you know, and so
So the other-
another thing is coming out of the gate, it probably won't be fully subscribed. So therefore, you know, a portion of the solar power that's being generated is going to benefit all ratepayers to begin with. So
It's just going to go into the
That-
portfolio. That unsubscribed portion just goes into the portfolio. Yeah.
Well, what's nice about it is it's community driven without you having to like have a public forum about it necessarily. So, you know, as people demonstrate an interest, sign up or reserve a slot, put down a deposit, whatever that is, you know, you have a signal of interest. And once you're, you know, basically you have a tier, and once the tier fills, you build it, and then you create another tier, right? And then once that fills, you build it. And so you're responding to your community's, you know, interest pretty directly, I think, and building out what is, you know, tenable and acceptable for the community. So there's a nice element there too, where you're actually getting direct, you know, customer input and into decision making, I think.
And participation. So I like the whole concept of maybe like the community coming together. So maybe reaching out, the whole thing about not just getting people to invest in the shared solar, but to like someone else, I think, who's it? Pete, I don't know, some volunteering your rooftop. If you've got a commercial establishment, you could say, yeah, you can put some solar panels here and so it's kind of a community coming together kind of a concept.
Right. So being that it is complicated, like I wouldn't necessarily, while I understand we want to kind of do a test with a small program or whatnot, I wouldn't necessarily want to go through all this work to not, I don't know how to say this, but to not commit over the longer term. So I think it is very valuable for us to discuss strategy on this before we go too far, to make sure that at least the board is aligned with thinking that this is a valuable approach, because I certainly wouldn't want to go again through all these complexities for, right, to not end up really wanting to do this type of project over the longer term.
well,
Yeah,
but
well, we should move forward anyways with solar, regardless of who's going to, you know, be the one to pay for it, and get it in the mix. But yeah, I agree, Jen, that we need to get on the same page on how we're going to move forward on this.
the only thing I was gonna say too is that, you know, short of an overwhelming demand for it, which would obviously drive, you know, looking for a second project. If it's only marginal demand or less than fully subscribed, then at least it tells us the information and it doesn't commit us to any. The reason we've picked this project to propose with our own roofs is because it takes some variables out of the equation, and although it's complex a little bit, it's a lot more controllable because we're controlling the variables. So if we try to now go approach Mr. Joe business owner about doing it on his roof, then we've added a whole additional layer of complexity that, you know, and now we're, you know, there's a whole different set of issues.
I mean, my feeling, I think that the project overall is, you know, a worthwhile endeavor. I think it helps us on, you know, multiple fronts, from, you know, the environmental benefits, the, either or model in terms of if it's just an asset that the utility owns and we just, generate the power, like, kind of like the battery and the peaker plants, versus, but I would personally lean more towards the community share buy-in where folks can subscribe to this. And, I think that gives us a new and interesting model that can grow and expand. As Pete said, if out of the gate demand, it gets fully subscribed pretty quickly, that indicates that there's a demand for more of that, and gives us a way to subscribe to other projects and bring forth other projects, whether that's on Mr. Joe business owner or other municipal buildings to start, because from I don't know if there's a implication between a utility owned building or a municipal owned building, if there adds a layer of complexity there, but just my 2 cents.
I mean, my opinion, I guess, is that we should do as much like in the base without changing rates that we can possibly do. And so I don't feel necessarily the need to make it more complex to do that. But if we start to kind of fall outside of that, the ability to continue to do that at some point, then I'd like to consider other models to see if we can continue to expand solar, but maybe without having a huge rate increase or any rate impact for our customers.
My opinion is, I'm back to the beginning. I read through it, and it's fraught with challenges. It's not an easy path. That's all I can say. It's certainly doable.
Are you the fraught with? Are you saying more on the community shared where people buy in, or just the entire project?
Community share, people buying in. Yeah, by putting them on our roofs does take out, a big chunk of the challenges, but yeah, many still remain, and what is the cost benefit in the end balanced against it? Till you run the numbers, you don't know.
Yeah. So would you prefer to see it more just, as part of our base, just another utility owned asset?
I think we need to look at that. Yeah.
Pete, do you have any sense, because it's come up a couple times, can you give us an estimate of how much more of this kind of stuff we can fit in existing rates, the existing rate structure, without causing any kind of price impact?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, we have a rough idea and we put it in a budget number for this year. So I think I like to do a lot of these things as tests and pilots that aren't going to break anything, and get a feel for how successful they could be without having a, I don't know if we can extrapolate that right now. It's kind of tough, but I think we could do a project like this again, because we can control some of the variables. And if it didn't get fully subscribed, it's not going to make or break anything from our perspective. So it's going to, it's a good test ground to see how much interest, there would be in the community to jump into something like this. Again, so in Reading, their first project got fully subscribed very quickly, and they went to a second project, and that one I don't think is fully subscribed. So they reached their kind of community level.
And in those projects, where are the panels?
They're both on private land.
Okay.
So Pete, is it a good assumption of mine to say that this project, with the budgeted numbers, fits into our base without any impact to our rates? So if we were to just do this straight up, it wouldn't, cause a rate increase.
Potentially, no. I mean, again, we haven't gone out for the proposal yet.
Okay.
We're based on our budgetary numbers, yes, but
Okay.
if it comes in
Yeah, obviously,
significantly
based on the
higher
budget.
than we anticipate, then yeah, I mean, we'd have to relook at that,
Okay. That's fair. It's good info to have.
We ready to move on to mission statement?
Yeah.
I think so, because we have a lot to talk about. We haven't got to goals yet. So, Mr. Chairman, if everyone else is on board, if we want to move on to mission, vision, values, can I start?
Yes.
All right, so I looked at what is in the package here on page 103, and I said to myself, oh my God, who's the person who's got to write all these numbers on all these pages? So I don't know. I hope someone doesn't have to keep writing all these page numbers on my book, even though we asked for it in the past, but I feel so bad. So here's what I suggest on the mission statement. I have one edit. So the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department and its employees provide our customers with safe, reliable, competitively priced, and environmentally responsible, and blah, 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 while adjusting to the, wait a minute, and environmentally responsible energy resources and services that enhance quality of life. I would take out the comma after the word services, because it doesn't fit.
Okay.
On the vision statement, here's what I didn't like about the vision statement after I thought about it. I like it a lot, except that it talks about the future where the mission talks about today, right? So the mission says we're going to provide safe, reliable, competitively priced and all that service. And then the vision is the future. That says in the future, WMGLD is committed to being a trusted partner for the use of electric power, blah, blah, blah. But it ignores the mission, so which was the safety and the reliability. So what I would propose is that we change the vision statement to say, in addition to carrying out our mission, comma, WMGLD is committed to being blah, blah, blah. Because I don't want the vision to ignore the today, the mission.
I see that.
I mean, it's adding words. It's a little bit more verbose, but it demonstrates that we're not giving up on the mission of safety and reliability and all that.
Instead of in addition to carrying out our mission, could we just say beyond our mission?
Yes. Much better.
Okay, I like that better. I mean, I will say, I think I've never seen that language before, so my assumption is that it's inherently understood, but I actually don't know that for sure. But I'm willing to add those 3 words. The longer part felt a little bit clunky, but the 3 words feels a bit better.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I like it. It's reinforces the mission to your point. And, we're not leaving it behind. We're not ignoring it. And Jen, well, most of the time one would assume that. Why not just directly call it out?
Okay, so let me go. So on the values, I had this because I got a problem with it. Said values, right? WMGLD will accomplish its mission and maintain its vision by focusing our core values. And then it's a sentence ended. There was no punctuation or anything. So I think it should say, accomplish its mission and maintain its vision by focusing on our core values, comma, which are, colon, and then the safety of our employees and the community we serve, semicolon, fiscally effective management of blah, 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 and resilience, semicolon, dedication, and then let me think, dedication to courtesy and excellence in our customers, and I would change that from apostrophe S to S apostrophe, experience, semicolon, the next line, semicolon, and then the final line, collaboration and fairness, I would suggest instead of through, we say in all interactions with stakeholders. That way we can end with the period that's there and make it one huge sentence. So I don't know if you guys got all that, but.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
With a bulleted list, do you need the semicolons?
Where are
Well,
you getting
yes,
rid of the bullets?
yes, because you have a period at the end, which means you're making it a sentence. So if you're gonna make it a sentence, you need the semicolons.
Could we just not make it a sentence and make it the bulleted list, or?
Oh, because the mission is a sentence, the vision is a sentence, and therefore the value statement has to be a sentence. So just, I would say throw in the semicolons and have a period at the end of the last bullet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think most of the samples that we looked at, the values, some listed as many as 8, 10, or 12. So they had them in bullets, and we just kind of followed that.
That's fine. It's just that it's written as if it were a statement. It says WMGLD will accomplish its mission and maintain its vision, but that, so it needs a period, and therefore it needs the semicolons.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have no issue with that. I like it.
Otherwise, in terms of content, I love it. I think we did a great job last meeting.
Yeah, I do
And-
too. I'm really pleased.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and whoever put this all together did a great job. That was Tom and the guys in the office. So you guys did a great job, all of you.
I was just the scribe.
Guys,
I shared it the
guys
next.
and gals.
I shared it the next day with the senior staff, and Raven actually we noticed we had service twice in 2 successive bullets. So Raven actually came up with the dedication to courtesy and excellence in our customers' experience. So we got
I liked it.
Give her
I like
kudos.
it. Yeah, it's very nice.
Any more compliments that we want to give ourselves?
Do we need to take a
Is this a
vote
voting issue?
to accept this? And
Make it formal? Yes,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
Mhm.
Jen, you want to make the motion or do you want to second the motion?
I'm going to second.
All right, I'll make the motion.
you want me to make the motion?
Go ahead, Tom.
All right. I'll make the motion to accept the mission, vision, value statement as amended and edited.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll edit it up. I'll
4-0
send it.
unanimous.
I'll edit it, send it out for one more just review before, and then we'll try to put it on our website and pick the right places to put it. And do we want to do some kind of press release that talks about the fact that we've identified, I don't know. I guess it's,
We might as well, yeah. Put it in the paper and put it on the website, yeah.
You want to try it out with your employees first?
yeah, I think they'll be fine with, I mean, the changes that were made were fine. I don't think they'll have an issue, but let me clean it up and make sure I make all the edits, and then I'll share it one more time with everybody, and then starting next week, we'll try to put it in places.
Great, sounds good.
Awesome.
And I was the one who did the numbering this month, Jack, because Maureen wasn't in, so that's why they're crooked and cut off.
And that's why I was wondering, because the penmanship is almost as bad as mine.
It was definitely, it was mine this month.
Pete, as a suggest, is it possible, you know, obviously these things all come from different sources, but, you know, throwing all these, I'm assuming most of these are electronic, but throwing all the sources into a Word document and then, you know, having Word put the numbering in the footer.
That's what I used to do. I hear these boards, and I used to do that.
It's a lot, because of the sources that it comes from, it's a lot of work.
Okay, so it's probably less work to
Yeah.
hand number.
First of all, Bill Gates doesn't like people when he automatically assumes how you want everything formatted. And so when you try to, we did it a couple times where we tried to do that. We brought everything together into one document, and it was just, I got a big migraine.
Yep, yes.
Well, as a suggestion, I'm taking the book apart and I'm moving stuff, because you're assembling the book in sequential order that you think will read from front to back as the meeting goes on. But really, I would rather see the attachments as attachments. And of course, this attachment was all numbered. You know, that would have taken 60 pages out of the numbering process if it was just added to the back. And then if, you know, the materials, the financial reports, those are all in one section. And then anything that's discussion, you know, can be up in the front of the book. Like our next subject, the proposed meeting schedule. You know, that really doesn't have to be in the back, just because we're taking it up in that order. Maybe if there's large attachments, you know, just we can put them in the back.
Yep.
However you want to do it.
I do that sometimes, like, for example, I was debating on this one, whether I should include it in the book, and I ultimately ended up regretting it because it was squeezed in there. But like when I do the Melanson Heath report, it's like a separate attachment. The annual report, it goes in separately. So
Yes.
I probably should have put this in separately.
The other thing I want to ask is there any requirement that you give us a physical copy of this? Because I really don't know, now that it's posted online I believe prior to the meetings, maybe it's not. I mean, I could just access it there.
It's everybody's had a different preference. We went down, we had iPads for a while, and everybody had an iPad, and then most people wanted a hard copy of it also anyway. So it became redundant. So we ended up just going back to printing one out for everybody and delivering them. So we can do whatever. I mean, we've been working on a process to post them. It's probably not perfected yet, so we've probably got at least another couple months where we give everybody a hard copy and make sure we're good at getting it all posted. I don't know if you saw the changes to the website.
I did.
Actually, Pete, I have the minutes up on my iPhone and I'm following it by there because I don't have a board book.
Oh,
So it is on the web right now.
Well, maybe we can talk about it maybe we can talk about it again in the future once the process gets ironed out. But I guess I'd want you to spend the time making sure that everybody, you know, the public and everyone else has access to and getting a good quality electronic version rather than printing it out for me.
Yeah, my feeling is that the attachments, like this big thing on the community shared solar, right? That thing could have been provided like
Electronically.
Well, exactly. Thank you. Electronically as an attachment. But the only thing that I want to see that I need on paper is the stuff I'm going to write on. And so, like the agenda, the minutes, all the managers' reports, I'm gonna write on those things, so I need those on paper. The only thing that I don't need on paper is all the attachments. The vision statement I would have written on, the meeting schedule I wrote on. Well, no, I didn't write on, I would have written on. The goals I'm writing on, right, so those I need in paper.
And I'm the same.
But the big dog, community shared solar, yeah, that certainly, yeah, that would have saved somebody 100 pages of writing page numbers, Pete.
And some trees.
Well, maybe we can come back and revisit this, because I think
think
it sounds like we could be more efficient.
It's a matter of preference, I think, because some people like the hard copy and some people don't mind the electronic. So we've gone up and down over the years. So
Well, I'm sorry, so let me clarify. So when I say that the community shared solar, so, because you're right, Pete, I'm one of the ones who, and I'm sorry to say, I don't like it electronically. But, so I would just like it separately.
Mhm.
And not, you know what I mean, and not in the binder with numbers,
yep, that's fine.
but I still want it on paper. Well, all right, no, that particular report, I would, if it were a contract that we're looking at, it could be separate and wouldn't have to be numbered, but it was something I have to read, I want to read it on paper. This community shared solar is a great document, and but this definitely isn't something I wouldn't need necessarily on paper. Even though I appreciate you giving it to us, I mean tremendously, because I wouldn't have found it on my own. I'm just, I mean, a release on paper, but separate from the book.
All right, we'll address that later then. Shall we move on to the proposed meeting schedule?
Sure. Pete, just one quick thing. Well, I was just checking out the new website. There's just a spelling mistake. It's WMGLB meeting schedule.
Oh,
It needs to be changed to a D. Carry on.
And I have no objections to this proposed schedule.
I have none.
I have none either.
I have no plans ever again.
we're all pretty much locked in through at least the July meeting, it looks like anyway, so.
Although I will say I'm going to vacation as soon as I get inoculated, so I'll keep you posted.
I think you and the rest of the world.
All right.
Goals discussion.
So I just took the 2020 and we made some changes, but I don't know if you guys wanted to do, in past years, you guys have identified a subcommittee that I work with directly. We usually pick a couple people and then we'll come back in either January and or February and kind of finalize the goals for the year. There were some things that, you know, we try to incorporate already, but it usually is better with a subcommittee and then bringing something back to the larger group.
I think that's a good idea. I worked on the 2020 goals, and I've got time, so I'd be glad to volunteer to be on the subcommittee and work with at least one other person to review the 2020 goals, to where we are, what we have, what we didn't have, and then meld them into the 2021. So I guess, do we have another volunteer? Let's see, Jen, you'll be running for election. And Tom, you will be the next year's chairperson.
Yeah, I can volunteer if you want. Just wondering, we meet during the day, I assume.
I'm available.
I was just more concerned with my work schedule. Can be quite hectic.
Yeah, and
during
I'm
the
very
business hours.
flexible. I'm,
Okay.
Available. I'm stuck
Yeah.
home, so
Yeah, and the rest of us are.
yeah.
Do we
I mean,
need?
I'll defer to you, Tom, since you haven't done it before, but if you can't fit it in, I'm happy to do it.
All right, so it looks like a subcommittee of 2 will be Phil and Tom.
So,
Or
let me just ask, so, Pete, I think we've discussed this in the past, just to get into the technicality. Do we need to establish a subcommittee if it's under, if it's a quorum, or can it just, or does it have to be formally established if it's not under a quorum, if it's only 2?
Only 2, it doesn't have to be formally voted. It's just more of an agreement.
working group.
Okay, so we don't need a vote. All right, so any 2 people, okay.
I guess my question would be if I get time constraint, can like tap out to Jen or?
So let's just go with Jen and Phil. I mean,
Fine with
if
me.
Jen, yeah, if she said she could, yes, and if Tom's concerned about time constraints, I don't know, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, sounds good. I'll join you, Phil.
Okay.
And I have a lot of flexibility during the day, so anytime, I'm sure we
Okay.
can find a time.
Great.
So you guys both have the document. If you want to start by, taking comments from the others and, maybe even highlighting some areas that you'd like to see stuff added or changed or deleted is a good starting point. I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I did a rough edit to clean out some stuff that probably didn't need to be there and add some stuff that did, but I haven't spent a ton of time on it, so.
Okay, now, and have you sent this to us electronically? Have you emailed us?
I could send the document separately, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't, so usually getting back to kind of meeting format stuff. In the past, what I've done is I've sent you all via email, all the independent documents. And I didn't do that this month because we posted the whole book as one on the webpage. So I didn't, that's why I didn't send you the individual documents, but I'll send you this document.
Okay, great. I'll review this. I'll get my folder out from last year's goals. I'll spend a little time and then I'll get back to both of you.
Take a time over the next couple of weeks to start the conversation.
Great.
I guess the only thing I'm wondering is it possible to solicit high-level ideas from the board tonight, or do we need to do that separately?
No, it's fine.
I mean, does that, Jack and Tom, do you have, and you too, Phil, do you have anything you want to say right now in terms of changes you would like to see?
No, I don't. No, I haven't had time to really go through it. I'm sorry to add anything to the goals. I don't have anything to add.
My read is, as this year's 2020 goals, no more than got started, we were operating in the COVID environment. And it certainly looks like at least the next 6 months of next year will be in that same environment. So take a look at 2020 first, and then review 2020, and then look into 2021. And because there are
Yeah,
some
that-
things I'm sure we accomplished in 2020 that we didn't have as part of the goals as well.
Yeah, I would say,
Yeah, so there
obviously.
Oh, go ahead.
I would just say that, considerations for COVID changed a lot of things, right, and hampered it in the ability, and, on the other side allowed areas to shine as well. But I don't have anything specific to review, but same as John, I didn't get a chance to go through this in detail.
Yeah, I was actually confused because I thought this was a proposal for, so I said, oh, they must have met in a subcommittee because they're giving us a proposal. So now I'm realizing this is just, he's given us last year's, and so no, so I need to put some thought into this too.
So there were a few things I wanted to tee up at a very extremely high level. One is the idea that environment is definitely more, I think, a pretty significant part of our mission, vision, and values. And I'm wondering whether we should consider changing leadership to environment and reshuffling that category around a little bit. So I just wanted to throw that out there as an idea, and you certainly don't have to respond to it tonight. But if you have thoughts on that, I think it'd be good to get them early on. The other thing I wanted to raise is, Phil, I'm absolutely interested in, you've had some feedback, I think, in the past on goals at a high level saying, maybe they could be more helpful, maybe they could be organized differently, and I'd absolutely love to hear ideas on that. I would really appreciate hearing ideas. I think when I first got involved with, which certainly wasn't the first time, goals were created, I think that we were in a position where we didn't have a lot of data. We wanted to try a bunch of things out, and a lot of things were going to be pilot programs or pilot efforts. And so what ended up happening is that this became kind of like a checklist, like an action-oriented checklist of sorts, where you kind of, and we went through it last time. You say, like, was it done? Check or don't check, or partial check, right? And that's kind of how you scored it. There's certainly other ways to formulate goals. There could be more metrics. We have more data now. There could be more metrics along the lines of what we have for like the Katie safety, where we have like certain thresholds. And one thing I wanted to put out as an example or a potential thing to consider is, now that we have, for example, environmental goals potentially through legislation, whether we might consider having interim goals between, we have a goal, for example, for 2030, whether we might offer any more guidance on a trajectory, like on an annual basis, to reach some of these goals. So that's one option. And the other thing I'll raise is just on the financial side. We've always said Mark's gotten off really, really easy. We don't have a ton of goals. And so whether there's any kind of metric that people want to propose for financial, that's not as task oriented, but more, a benchmark, I guess, for financial performance. So I don't have a good idea for that, but I just wanted to throw it out there as something we could discuss.
Yeah, well, the format of these goals were really kind of set up, from what I see, falling out of strategic planning. And, Peter is working, with his staff and his people and sharing in these goals. So I know he likes the format.
Like, for example, so we've kind of gone back and forth over the years on more number specific and more global. And for example, so I always like to try to simplify things as much as possible. That's why, in talking about the community solar, we can go to Joe Smith down the street and try to build a project on his roof, but it's gonna be a lot easier to take out 20 variables and just do it on our own. And in this case, like, for example, there's a whole bunch of operational metrics, but at the end of the day, the two that matter the most are how often do your lights go out? And if they do go out, how fast do you get them back on? That's why I focus on safety and Katie. And on the financial side, for example, there's really only two things that matter. We get a clean audit, so we're not doing anything illegal, and our rates don't go up. So those are the two things that, you know, are Mark's scorecard. So we can add in some other metrics, but I don't know if that's, you know, it's really, is it a matter of just adding numbers for the sake of having numbers, or is it going to drive us towards something that, you know?
Yeah, from a financial, one of the things that I always say, you know, it's kind of one of these odd things. It's that, you know, it's like the accounting department or the finance department should be, you know, like seen and not heard. It's like no news is good news, and that's the right, Pete. I mean, you don't want the.
But I mean, there is a financial. I think one of the things I took out of the audit this time is maybe we could include that free cash number that is slightly going up, you know, in the goal. Maybe we can have a goal around that one to kind of try to continue to grow that slightly each year or maintain it. So that's something that's measurable that adds value. I just don't want to throw a bunch of numbers in there that don't you know, bear down to a simple thing that does have value, like the fact that we try to keep our rates constant as much as we can, and we want to make sure we're doing it 100% right and we get clean audits, you know.
Yeah, and some metrics are just driven by the industry, obviously, safety, personal injury, motor vehicle accidents, gas leaks. So those I'm sure will always remain.
Mhm.
Okay.
So then, so getting back to your comment, Jen, maybe we can find one or two indicators that were highlighted by like Melanson or something that are numbers we wanted to watch and add those in there, type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
I'm on board with that.
All right, so the next subject would be returning to executive session if we're complete. So I'll ask, does anybody have anything else?
One thing before, just
Before we jump in to executive session, just let me know. I have to stop recording and start for executive.
Okay.
just on the electric vehicle dashboard, not on the dashboard itself, Pete, just did we get our charge points signed into EV Watts to that program? And then did anything come out of that yet?
No. Let me look into that more.
Okay.
This was actually, Dave showed me, it was actually the busiest month we've had so far. It was actually,
Yep.
there was a net revenue generation for the town as opposed to a net loss. So, I mean, in the whole scheme of things, the net for the town is they're only down about $30. And considering we made a significant investment, I'm not really going to lose sleep over the fact that they're down under $100. But at the end of the day, it was at least a decent month that broke even. So
I saw that. Yeah, it's obviously COVID threw a huge wrench into this, and then I think with anything new, there's a ramp up period, and people start to realize they're there. Form habits and things, and and then just the industry itself. There's just more and more electric vehicles coming online. I don't know. Did you see like GM's announcement a week or two ago that they have a newer battery technology that they're doubling down on, and because of it, it's been so successful. They were committed to bringing by 2023 20 new all-electric vehicles to market. They've actually adjusted that, and that with an investment of about $20 billion. They've actually adjusted that goal to 30 new vehicles by 2025 and up their investment to 27 billion. So there's just, and that's just one manufacturer. I just think there's going to be more demands for chargers as we go forward.
Yeah. I think, to me, the thing I think is, as soon as, and it might happen with the new administration, that they mandate all like vans and pickup truck fleet vehicles become electric vehicles by a certain point, as long as they meet certain qualifications. I like the fact that Amazon is committed to making their entire fleet electric vehicles, because that'll drive the van market. Because right now we can't really get an electric van. So if Amazon's going to buy 100,000 of them, hopefully we, we'll benefit from that. Because we have 3-4 vans right now, and I can't get those in electric, and we definitely need vans. So
The only other comment that I had on the dashboard was the credit for planting 29 trees. But I was concerned that with a customer base of 12,000, if 5,000 of those people have a live Christmas tree that was cut.
probably.
They replant those. They're a renewable.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the tree farms are pretty good about that, or they'll go out of business pretty quickly.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay.
Nope.
All right.
So before you stop, Dave, just let them get the motion and the vote in, and then we'll stop it.
Yep.
I guess I'll make the motion to enter into executive session.
And I think we need to add to that, though, that we'll come out of executive session to adjourn.
Yeah.
And then we'll come out of executive to adjourn.
Thank you. Second. Jen?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
4-0 unanimous. Thank you.
So there's just the executive